Hi, my name is Doug Vogt from the Dihole Foundation. It's May 24th, 2021. And this video is in Series 4 on the causes of the Ice Age and polar reversal. And it's part 6B. And what I'm going to cover is going to uncover two major secrets that we didn't know about until we got into it. Myself, as well as a number of engineers and geologists. But this is what we're going to cover. We're going to cover a little bit of old business, and then from the previous video, part 6, calculate the amount of heat that evaporates 450 feet of ocean water during the last ice age. After the reversal, we have enough evidence from geologists from around the world that the ocean levels were lowered by 450 feet. And we have evidence in the form of carbon-14 data of tree trunks, tree stumps, things like that. And it was worldwide, all the oceans. And we're going to cover that, and you're going to know how much heat is necessary to do that, and that should settle the issue once and for all if there's such a thing as a mini-nova or a micronova that will be removed from your vocabulary forevermore. Events that will happen before, during, and after the reversal. It'll also tell you where not to build, where not to be, and it's to help answer a lot of questions I've gotten by both comments and emails about, they say, well, I'm in Arkansas, where could I go? Or Colorado or Canada, etc. And you'll find out the answer is going to be very obvious to everybody. And anyway, you'll find out. Answer viewers' questions, part 6, all types. Actually, the video right after this one will go into that more than this one, but I'll cover a few of them. The different types of shelters that will not work. Please do not locate if you want to survive the reversal. How true. If this is the first time you've seen one of my videos, you should really see the beginning of Series 4. All of them, it's the meat and potatoes and all the philosophical and scientific evidence that these things happened and how it happened. This book was published in 2007. It has, in Chapter 8 is the nuts and bolts of a lot of the evidence. A lot of people have bought the book and have not found anything wrong in it, that the evidence I present is overwhelming. Now, the videos have even more evidence that I have figured out since then. 2015 this is the third iteration of the theory of multidimensional reality. The reason I was able to figure all of this stuff out is because of the philosophy. If you don't have the right philosophy, you don't know where a phenomena is placed in how it relates to reality. On the old business in part 6 and the earlier parts regarding the Darpa cave contest, and which is now up to $2.5 million they're willing to give. It's really they want the program. Anyway, this is what their contest had in the beginning of this mine in someplace out west. And you'll notice these QR codes here. And this is a centering thing so an optical reader can center it and knows where it is. And there's a round thing here. This looks like some kind of an infrared communications divider sensor. And this is round, but I don't know if it's a light or it's an ultrasonic device. But this is what it looks like. Now, one of the cover stories was saying this is for mine safety. If it was for mine safety, then USGS would be doing this, Department of Interior, rather than DARPA, which is the Defense Department. But notice this is one of the caves on the East Coast. They're survival caves. And you'll notice it's the same exact QR codes and patterns, including the two round things over here, which you don't see all that well because it's not a great picture. It's the same thing. So really, they wanted people to come up with programs so their robots can maneuver through this. That was the object, not mine safety. As they say, they hide it in plain sight. This is what the contest of these universities and companies bringing these, these kind of different types of robots, wheels, flying types, and this is really what the military had in mind. Now, ClearPath Husky, you can actually buy that. It's from here down. Everything from here up is what they added to it. So they had in mind, that's like 39 inches long. It's not real big, but of course it's 25 years before the reversal, so this thing might grow pretty big. The point being is that the reason why it has treaded wheels like this is because you notice it's a wonderful concrete road through here. It's not like a mine where it's got gravel, dirt, it's got train tracks, stuff like that. No, it's strictly a beautiful, gorgeous road. That's why wheels like this, they don't have to worry about if things fall down from the roof, they want to be able to climb over it. But now you understand it was always intended for the caves that we spent $21 trillion plus on. Okay, now locations to build a cave and a shelter. These are in the series 4 that talk about why the Earth's rotation stops and then goes in the other direction. I'm obviously going to have to do another one also that will explain it probably down to an atomic level and show it's the same program that's going on in the center of a planet or a center of a star. But this is what you have to deal with and where you want to go, where you don't want to go. What we have to worry about, I'm trying to find more engineers as well as geologists in the areas, in the study areas, because the water pressure, as you can see by what I have here, wherever the minus sign is of the first number, that's where I actually got a reading from Google Earth. So the distance between the Orient, I think it was Indonesia, to South America is 9,000 miles. That is a lot of ocean. That's a lot of mass. From like California to Japan, which is on the same latitude, I think it was 4,800 miles. It's a lot of water, and it's very deep. So we need engineers to be able to basically design a cave door system that will save your lives. That's the key part. I'm going to do a video, not the next one, the one after, on Chapter 11 on Reality Revealed, my first book, that will cover the mythologies from around the world, and you'll see that the ones who did survive this were the ones who did it in a cave. They called the gods, sometimes survived in mounds and in pyramids, but the majority appear to had survived in caves. So anyway, this is the study areas, so you understand where you should think about going. So in Central America, southern Mexico, Guatemala, Honduras, Nicaragua, Dominican Republic. The only issue is 12,000 feet of water here, it's like 15,000 over here. It's a lot of water, and these are your elevations. So you can see you might be able to survive it in caves, but remember you should be as far away as you can from this ocean. One place I recommend about 500 miles. Well, they don't have 500 miles as a luxury. So the cave door system and the kind of rock that you build these caves is critical. In northern part of South America, Colombia, Ecuador, Peru, Brazil, Venezuela, Guyana, Suriname, and French Guiana. That's up here. We have mythologies from Venezuela, probably from the mountains up in here. Where you see the 2 and 4, that's exactly the place where I got that elevation. So you can see the mountains aren't that big, but you've got a lot of water over here. Now this is going to flatten out as it goes in an easterly direction, but we just don't know how much. And the speed, God knows. The speed of the Earth at the equator is, there's the equator, is supposedly a little over 1,000 miles an hour. It'll slow down before then, but we don't know how much, but probably not that much. When it stops, I'm thinking or praying to God, the speed of the water is going to be not more than 400 miles an hour, but who knows. Further south in South America, Brazil, Peru, Brazil, and Bolivia would have to be on this side. Nobody on this side is going to survive it. 15,000, you're talking like, you got from between 2 to 3 miles of water. Almost all the continents is just west of you. And it's going to come towards you real fast. And you're not stopping it. Brazil, they have a mountain range along here. You might have a chance of surviving it there. 1,970 miles is the distance across here. If it goes to 400 miles an hour, you can figure out how many hours it'll take to go right across the continent. Same thing, 3,000 miles here. You might get as far as here, but it'll flow all the way. Nothing's going to stop it. In Africa, you have these depths, 13,500, 15,000, 17,000. This is over 3 miles of water. So here's your elevations. I wouldn't do anything within 500 or 300 miles of the ocean because give it a chance to flatten out because of gravity and maybe lose some velocity, I hope. So, but you can see you've got places you can do it. And this water is going to go straight across like this. This is going to straight across like that. It's not going to go like this. It's not going to go up. Further down in Africa, these are the study areas I have over on this side. What countries? And again, 16,700 feet, 3 miles of ocean water. And you don't have that great an altitude to build anything to reduce the water pressure. So now you understand why designing the door system is so critical for anybody's survival. It's not just the water pressure. You're going to find out the heat also is a major concern. Further south in Africa, Congo, Uganda, Rwanda. Oh, this list of countries here. Again, you don't want to build anything along this close to the ocean because look at the depths. It's a lot of water. Best chances along this area from here this way. But remember, after the nova reversal, the oceans are going to be down at least 400 to 450 feet. And if you want to get, I assume people are going to be getting their protein from the ocean. So after this whole thing ends, either people are going to go to the Atlantic or the Indian Ocean and settle somewhat closer to the coast so they can get fresh food. This is where we believe the longitude that the sun is going to nova. It's the 60 degrees east longitude. Since it's going to be during the next Gleisberg cycle, the next Gleisberg is between September and December 2046. The Torah gives a date of October 16th. That would be between 5 and 10 degrees south latitude. Someplace in here will be perpendicular to the sun when it novas. So this area in here is going to get the maximum heat exposure, maximum evaporation. And you'll find out, much to our surprise, it's all the oceans get it, but over a longer period of time. By the way, some of this stuff, for some of you, is going to be a little scary, but I try to approach it scientifically only without much emotion because I want to impress upon you the importance of what you have to deal with and what we're trying to deal with to try to design something that will save your lives. I don't want to get into the politics of which government design is, which one's going to steal your stuff after it's built. things like that. I don't want to get into that now. Anyway, tilting the Earth a little bit north so you understand who also gets it. Here is 60 degrees. That's the longitude. So it looks like everybody gets a chance in the old world, gets a chance to enjoy, to see the sun nova. From China all the way to Europe, almost all of Africa, Saudi Arabia, India. You'll all have a chance to enjoy it for 6 to 8 hours when that sun is still. In Asia, the study area is southern India. They should survive it. I mean, there's some mountain ranges here. The Indian Ocean over here is not that big and all not that deep. It's 2 miles deep, but it's workable. And maybe even though Ceylon or Sri Lanka is one big volcano, I don't know if it's dormant, but on the east side, you might survive it. Indonesia, about over 2 miles of ocean water, but it's got like 20 some odd volcanoes going. Kind of a dangerous place to be. Not saying you couldn't survive it there if you build the right kind of cave system, but it's something to think about. Indochina, decent chance of it. There's enough hills there you can build and stuff like that. And people did survive it there. In the Far East, Indonesia, Philippines, Papua New Guinea, and Australia. In the earlier videos, here's Papua New Guinea. There's evidence of a glacier that was, glacial till that went down to 5,000 feet. And I'm sure it didn't stop snowing at 5,000 feet. I'm sure it went all the way down to sea level. So that's the whole point. Anyway, Australia has an issue. I mean, it's, I think, about 5,000 miles from the African coast to Australia, and it's 19,000 feet. That's 3 miles of water. There's not really anything that's going to stop it going right across Australia. And you can survive it because the Aborigines did in cave systems. I don't know where their caves were, but they consider those caves holy. You can understand why. This is the direction of our pole. It's going in this direction. It's probably going to be around Nova Zembla in the 25 and a half years. I got an email from David Stone, one of my correspondents, a fan of mine. Greetings, Doug. Just to inform you, you don't already know, Ashford from 17 March till 17 April, magnetic north has traveled 5.2 miles according to Maverick Stars Observatory. It looks like an increase of a further 1 mile from the last month. It's quickening. In other words, in the 25 and a half years, it'll cover 62.4 miles in 1 year and about 1,600 miles to get to around Nova Zembla, which is where we know we've had reversals and the magnetic remnantization of the lava did point to this area in here. This is the work that was done by the Japanese scientists. This is where they had pointed, again, around Nova Zembla. And so it's heading in this direction, in this area. And I think that's where it's also going to be the longitude running roughly through there. Okay, we'll have them before. That's number 2. The sun's output will increase, and hence the Earth will get warmer, and its color will change to whiter from yellow. And a lot of people have mentioned that to me, both in comment and by email, that they remember when they were kids that our sun was a lot more yellow than it is now, which means it's changed frequency. Now, the government knew this, that the sun's output was going to increase. So they had to come up with an alternate explanation. I've covered this in some of the other videos. Here's some of them, video series 4, part 1 and part 3. And the very first article that pins global warming on carbon-14, or carbon, us creating global warming, is a guy named Wallace Boucher from Lamont Doherty, Columbia University, highly influenced or infiltrated by the CIA. And he's really the father of blaming mankind for global warming. He's the one in the article, and I've mentioned it. I'll send it off to people. It's, if you go to those videos, I'm more than happy to send it to you, the article in the journal Science. No place in the journal does he mention that mentions the sun at all. Like, the sun doesn't exist. It doesn't heat up the earth at all. But a couple of years later, a scientist said there was over 1,000 journal articles that they showed the sun-earth weather connection. I think anybody with an IQ at least 100 could figure this one out. That is disinformation. This is the Alps in Italy, August 1933. And here it is August 12th. Almost all melted away. And it's because of the sun, not because of your hibachi, your car, you breathing, you know. And don't ever forget this. I've showed this a number of times. We'll know, now this is, Bill Casey was the director of the CIA, the first meeting he had with Ronald Reagan, first cabinet meeting. He says, we know our disinformation program is complete when everything the American public believes is false. Now you know what he did. If you're a scientist, now you know what they were influencing. They were changing the science so you wouldn't figure out that our sun novas cyclically through time and causes the ice age. Third, there should be more hurricanes, tornadoes, lightning as we get closer to the reversal. And it's because you have a collapsing magnetic field. One, the Earth is going to get warmer because the sun's output is increasing, but also it'll be maybe a greater discharge of voltage in the form of lightning. Hurricanes, tornadoes, and this is a bar chart I had created. Anyway, 4, the Earth's energy in the Earth's core will increase. This will be evident by increase in earthquakes and volcanic eruptions. The Earth does not have an inner solid core. They're trying to say it's a solid iron core here, then it gets hotter here, and then eventually cools down and you have a crust. Well, there's several things that make this so incredibly wrong, the theory and their theories. One is we have a DE, F1, and F2 layer in the ionosphere, as well as, well, maybe I have it, I think I show it later on, and an electrostatic field around the equator. The satellites picked it up. In fact, every planet in our solar system has the same phenomena. When a satellite goes past its equator, you have a big spike of static. That can't be generated with a solid iron core. It means something is creating an RF signal there, as I covered in part 4A of series 4. The volcanoes, as this thing heats up, it's going to make this outer mantle hotter, and then you're going to have more volcanoes and the earthquakes because the plates will be basically swimming on this heated up sea of magma, and then you're going to have more quakes. And that's what happens. This might be an example of bad Chinese building though, but it looks good anyway. 5, my theory is that people's behavior will change, a gradual psychological change, a feeling that something is wrong or a feeling of impending danger, but people will not be able to put their finger on it. The psychologists can't either. I was surprised at this. When I searched for these two phrases, I got a lot of things. A lot of people have the same feelings. And it affects over 40 million US adults. You know, a lot of us are perceiving the future. We just can't figure out what it is. We know something's wrong and we know something's going to happen. We don't quite know what it is. Some of you have had dreams about it, and a few of us sent me what your dreams were, and they all were about the same stuff. You know, some of you really did see this reversal happen and die in it too. So psychologically, some of us are picking up on it. 6, government will become more dictatorial towards their populations. Go look at China. Information about the sun, climate, earth movements will be altered or eliminated from the journals. Only the government explanations for the change will be allowed. Broadcast to the general public, global warming is caused by you. Again, these are the guys that are the cause of it. The Europeans picked up on this, I think 5 to 10 years, 5 or 7 years after we figured it out. And it was the late 70s, the Europeans figured it out. And that's why they're so gung-ho on global warming and taxing. You know, bureaucracies love to be able to tax somebody so they have more money to feed themselves. So carbon taxes, that sounds good. We'll do that. Blame everybody. He's an idiot. He thinks he's God, I think. The voters finally got enough votes to get this idiot out of office. And he has dementia thanks to this. I covered this earlier. And the Dominion voting machines are made in China. And Sequoia Systems, which is the software, that company is owned by the Chinese government. And the Chinese, if they built it there, they're the ones who know the MAC address that's installed in these machines. And Sequoia, when they load in the software in the county, they know the IP address. Once you have the IP address, and then you know all of your machines, the MAC addresses, you can get into one of the machines and take that database table generated by the Zone OCR and do whatever you want with it. Like, gee, I'm going to make someone president or senator or congressman. This guy's got dementia. My mother-in-law lives with us, and she's 91 years old, and she has dementia, and she got it about 10 or so years ago. And he exhibiting the exact same things I see with my mother-in-law. Okay, events during the geomagnetic reversal. This is the things that happen during it. This is where we start getting serious. First thing will be the Earth's rotation will stop. I showed this in some of the earlier videos. This is a memorandum by RAND Corporation. The Air Force wanted to know why the Earth's rotation was slowing down. And you can get this paper from RAND. It costs you 25 bucks. And I showed in one of these videos screenshots of the parts where it clearly, they made the connection that the Earth's rotation is somehow caused by the Earth's magnetic field. They knew it. And this is back in '68. 2, the ocean's flooding the land. If you're on the west coast of any continent, forget it. You're not going to survive it. We estimate, or I'm estimating, hopefully 400 miles an hour. What's interesting, it takes light from the sun 8 minutes to get here. So if you're on the west coast of any place, that ocean is going to be on top of you, even within 53 miles. If it's going at 400 miles an hour, within 53 miles before you even see the nova. Oh, you'll also have the earthquakes too. You'll know something bad is about to happen. After that, then you'll see the nova. So everybody along the coast will be dead, drowned to death. So, 4,800 miles of Pacific Ocean west of California. You're not stopping that. It's too much mass. These are obviously drawings, computer-created realities. Beautiful pictures. Probably is going to look more like that. This is probably the distance of the water on the continental shelf, and after that, then you get the big stuff. You know, where it's like 15,000, 18,000 feet, 12,000 feet, until it finally flattens out. Now, this is proof also that the continents basically are overwashed by the oceans as it crosses over the continents. This is on the east coast of the United States, and these are all gullies and small canyons created by ocean water going across. This is the continental shelf, over the edge and down and cutting these canyons and gullies all the way down to the bottom of the Atlantic. That can only happen if there was no water there, no salt water there, because fresh water is lighter than salt water. Here's a close-up of the Oceanographer Canyon here off the East Coast. Again, created by a large volume of water cutting into the rock and the dirt, soil. 3, there should be major electrical discharge emitted from the center of the Earth. The worst part is at the equator, and that's what I was referring to here. The troposphere, you've got the D, E, F1 and F2 and a higher layer and if you're a ham radio operator, you bounce signals off of these layers, 10, 20 or 40 meter bands. So I show a picture for those who need a picture to see what a major lightning strike would be. This is probably a time lapse, but it's going to be sheets of lightning, because whenever you have something in the center of a planet, you have a collapsing magnetic field with a lot of information. And when it changes polarity, you wind up getting a huge spike of energy that's going to percolate or basically go right through the inner mantle, outer mantle, and then the crust, and then you'll have lightning. Now, the other part was, this is what was discovered when we put up satellites. We have an area along 5 degrees north or south of the equator. You get this static charge, and it's also on all the other planets. So, this is maybe 40, 50 miles up, 60 miles up. But I don't know what the distance you have to worry about along the equator. It may only be 1 or 2 degrees from the equator you have to worry about it. And I don't know what the effects would be. This is the electric universe. Folks have written me a couple of times saying that these canyons were made by lightning. This is canyons on Mars. Gee, they look just like the ones here on the Earth. How do you like that? Because there was oceans here, and guess where all the water went? It got evaporated over many, many millions of years, and eventually they have no water except maybe in the ground. So they think lightning bolts did this. Obviously, whoever told them this is either a colossal liar or never studied the subject. This is what lightning does when it hits the ground. It basically vaporizes sand and turns the stuff around it into glass. Here's another example. You have a tube, an empty tube, and the sand around it is melted to glass things that look like this. Here's another example, and this is a quote from, I think, a physics magazine. The blast of 1 billion joules radiates through the ground, making fluorite, hollow glass-lined tubes with a sandy outside, petrified lightning. When the lightning perfectly strikes the sand, it branches through like the root system of a tree to make this beautiful anomaly. The lightning creates a tube of glass through the ground, not above it. You can actually see the impact hole when it occurs in rock. Here, this is as it loses its charge and it dissipates. This is a museum, mineralogical research company, and they've collected this stuff. And here's where the charge hit, and it starts branching off till it dissipates over a wider area. That's all fluorite. So, in other words, wake up, folks. It does not create canyons at all. It doesn't dig ditches and holes like that. That's what it does. 4, the beginning of the reversal, the whole world will experience massive earthquakes that will last for hours. Actually, probably last for days. And it's going to go on probably for a good, 40, 50 years, 30 years, And it's for the reason I told you. What's going on in the center of the Earth, this core is a center modulation point. It's going to heat up this whole mass here. And it has been, the earthquakes have been increasing over the last 70 years. And as the Bible says, and many of the mythologies, some valleys rise up, some mountains drop down, some mountains go higher. 8 minutes after the reversal starts, the light from the nova will appear. The sun side of the Earth. Okay, the radiant heat, I'm only guessing at 2,000, and that's really a gross understatement. You're actually going to find out how much heat it takes to evaporate 450 feet of ocean water worldwide. So, when this thing happens, anything on the surface of the sun's side is going to get burned and vaporized within minutes. If you're standing outside, you're dead within the minute, maybe even a couple of seconds, you're dead. The sun, closest the Earth gets to the sun is during our winter solstice. Our summer solstice, it's basically the farthest, thank God for that. But in the southern hemisphere, it's the opposite. They're going to get, if it happens in October, it's probably not going to be, this is the average. It's probably going to be like 92 million miles away, which means it's going to be pretty hot. 5, on the sun side of the Earth, the radiant heat could be over 5,295 degrees. You're going to find out where I got that number. For that part of the first 18 hours, if you took the heat necessary to evaporate worldwide, it comes out. I better explain what happened. I had take my numbers. I was trying to figure out if the astronomers and the astrophysicists knew what the temperature was of a star that nova. And all I read, and also the 3 or 4 of the geologists and a couple of the engineers they say for when a star novas, it's 10,000 to 100,000 times more energy than our star gives off in a whole year. At that point, the geologists and myself all said, they're shooting from the hip, they're guessing. Because if that was true, we wouldn't be here. We wouldn't be talking. This planet would be glass. Look at Mercury, that's what you'd have. So they were no help at all, and we all agreed on that. They were guessing. In other words, they were useless for this calculation. This thing I came up with, I think basically 42 years ago. And this plot was taking the evidence that they had of where they found evidence and how old it was, carbon-14 dated, and this is how I wound up getting this graph. Okay, so the question is, then we knew what the end product was. We knew at the end of this thing last time, all the oceans were 450 feet lower. Now, during the reversal and the nova, it was probably even further down. Some of this came back in the form of hot rain. You'll see why in a minute. So I first assumed that this thing would only be doing it for the 18 hours it took for that dust shell to reach the Earth. And boy, was I wrong. So we had to do it from scratch, and this is how I did it. And this has gone through, I sent it to all the engineers and 4 or 5 of the geologists. And nobody so far found anything wrong with it. In fact, they were all shocked. These are the oceans that we know had their water levels lowered by that much. And that's how many square kilometers it is. And this is how many square meters. So I try to estimate, okay, what part of the Earth last time was affected. And it comes out, this is about 46% of the oceans was exposed over that 18 hours. Again, wrong assumption. Step 2, 450 feet, depth converted to meters, 137 and some change meters. Now I dealt with square meters and eventually cubic meters. This is where it gets interesting. The amount of heat necessary to evaporate 1 cc of ocean water. Boiling point of seawater is 104 degrees centigrade. Now, I want to say something interesting. When I search for this stuff, I got all different kinds of answers, from that all the way up to 118 degrees centigrade. And the problem is sodium has a boiling point of 801 degrees. And some of the other elements are also pretty high, because seawater is not distilled water, it's got a lot of minerals in it. So it raises the boiling temperature of seawater. I've seen as high as fully saturated salt water would be 108.7 degrees centigrade. But it's not that, it's not fully saturated. The water boils is when the vapor pressure equals the surrounding atmospheric pressure. That is a problem, because you're going to see in a minute when this thing happens, the air pressure, because something happens, has got to go way up. Anyway, 1 calorie is 4.185 joules, and I go through the whole process. It comes out to this. For 1 cc, cubic centimeter of ocean water, comes out to 627 calories. Now, normally it goes, this adds up to 104 degrees calories to get it to boiling. But what's this number? The latency of water, explained here. Here's water at 0 degrees. Then it takes 100 degrees centigrade for normal water. Really, it's 104 for us, for the ocean water. But this period of time, the temperature doesn't go up, but it takes 540 calories to break the bonds between the hydrogen and the oxygen. That's why the latency. And then it goes to steam. So, what happens when you have lava, which goes between 2,000 and 2,200 degrees Fahrenheit? It instantly vaporizes water. So what do you wind up getting? You wind up getting these clouds, water vapor, really dark clouds. That's key to understanding some of the things that the legends are saying. But that's what it does instantly. So, step 4, converting the volume of calories of heat and to Celsius temperature. So, I go through what kind of volume you're dealing with and how much energy it takes. So the number of calories of energy to evaporate 137 cubic centimeters of ocean water is that's 85.99, about 86 billion calories. Got that? 86 billion calories. That's known. Convert the calories to Celsius. That's a temperature of 189 million degrees Celsius. A little hot. Fortunately, we don't get that all in one shot, we hope. Now, so I first said, okay, I'll do it over 18 hours. It takes roughly, it could be 19 hours also, but 18 hours for that dust shoal to hit here. So it comes down to this. Over 18 hours, it would be 2,924 degrees centigrade per second, because that's how you measure it, or almost 5,300 degrees Fahrenheit per second. Iron boils at 5,184 degrees Fahrenheit, so we knew this was wrong. There's no way it could possibly be. Also, right off the bat, you now know for sure that a term of micronova or mini-nova is not true. It's a fantasy. It doesn't exist. That's why I keep saying it, and people keep writing to me, mini-nova or micronova. You're listening to two other people that mention it. It's wrong. They don't understand it, or they're trying to make this thing less than what it really is. Now you see what it really is. Got it? That's what it takes to evaporate 450 feet of ocean water worldwide. All the oceans were down that much. That's what we're dealing with. That's where you got nice dark clouds and lots of steam, and imagine every place where this thing happens would be that. So I started stretching this over periods of time. So over 7 days, you'll watch these temperatures as they go down over time. Now, I will say this, if you're in the northern hemisphere, like 35 or 40 degrees north or 40 degrees latitude south, you're more of an obscure angle to the sun's radiation. Now, I'll also say the sun's radiation isn't just visible light. It's infrared, visible, ultraviolet, X-rays, gamma rays, cosmic rays, and God knows what else. But that's the whole, we get the whole spectrum when this thing goes. Talk about an EMP, boy. Wow. Anyway, starts going down, 42 days down to 127 degrees Fahrenheit. It gets cooler as it's losing heat. Now, in the northern hemisphere, by North America and Europe and Russia and stuff like that, it'll already have started snowing someplace in here, maybe even by 30 days or less. They're going to get those big thick clouds, and the jet stream is going to go from east to west this time, and it's going to start snowing for them. And I'll cover that a little bit later. Now you'll understand why Darpa had the contest. 70 days, we're up to 89 degrees, or down to 89, 80 by 98. Sometime around here, if you're by the equator, these are really the temperatures probably best by the equator. It'll probably be okay to go outside the cave. Now, the air temperature is going to be cooler, but the water temperature is going to be this. I mean, this is what we have in Jacksonville and Florida, between 85 degrees and 80 degrees is the water temperature. Gulf's even hotter. So maybe around here, after about 49 days, 50 days, you can go outside. See what's left. Half a year, 54 degrees Fahrenheit. In this area here, it's probably snowing even at the equator. The rest of the place is already snowing plenty. The only thing wrong with this picture is, this is the Andes, and this is Rockies and the mountains in Mexico. This is all going to be glowing white. If anything, the equator's here. There's going to be some patches of no snow, because the latency of water, ocean water, is so great that it's still going to keep warm. So you might have some places that no snow for a while. Okay, 7, I think the discovery of an additional event. This is the one that we discovered that nobody knew, not written it down anywhere, no one ever thought about it maybe, but this is what's going to happen. And you'll see how it's explained. It's called a steam explosion. It's caused when water is heated to beyond boiling very rapidly, like with 2,000, 2,200 degrees. Now, when you're dealing with the temperatures I showed you, into the 2,000, 3,000 degrees and 4,000 degrees, you're going to have a real problem. You're going to have instant steam. That creates a shock wave. That process of the instant steam irradiation causes a shock wave. Now, when you look up steam shock wave, a steam heating, a steam explosion, what you look it up, they give examples of Chernobyl, where the uranium rods hit the water, the cooling rods, and exploded, and that's what blew the thing up. Instantly vaporized and caused an explosion. But this shock wave is heard all over the world, and it's described in some of the legends I'm going to show you in a second. It must be huge. Because you look at the volume of water that it's doing it all of a sudden, and then you understand all that is going to be one monstrous explosion. Okay, Hindu book Avatar. when that Vara, which is their name or illusion of the sun, a boar form, suddenly uttered a sound like the loudest thunder, and the echo reverberated and shook all the quarters of the universe. That was a big noise. That Vara, the sun figure, again made a loud noise and became a dreadful spectacle, shaking the full flowing mane which hung down its neck on both sides. Now, I'm going to explain and show you what they probably saw and what they're trying to describe here. Indians from Gila Valley, Arizona. Now, just north of there is the Apaches. I believe the Indians probably were not there during the reversal, but probably in southern Mexico, and then over the thousands of years migrated north as the snow and it got warmer. Then, in the twinkle of an eye, there came a peal of thunder and an awful crash, and a green mound of water rearing itself over the plain. Now, they were on, I'll show you where. There's Mexico, and the Gulf of Mexico and the Atlantic coming this way, and that's their mountain of water. They do a pretty good job. Most of them do a decent job at describing what they saw. And a green mound of water, and it reared itself over the plain. It seemed to stand upright for a second, then cut increasingly by the lightning, that means really forced on like a great beast. They mention this huge, awful crash. That's a shock wave, not just a sonic boom. That's really a shock wave, and that's in the Americas. And this thing novaed over a longitude running roughly through Japan. So they heard it. This one's interesting. This is a good one. Babylonian deluge legend. There came up from the horizon a black cloud. Adid thundered within it. At the dawn of day, really it was sundown. I'm going to explain that with my trusty globe. Sun novaed last time, longitude running roughly across here. Now, before, the Earth rotated like this, clockwise. So it would have been their dusk. They're over here. Where is it? There. And they rotated like this. And then sun novaed over here. But look where they are. At dusk. What happened, I think, is the people who survived it knew it was from that horizon. And the people, their descendants, knew it was that horizon, but now it's where dawn breaks. So that's why the difference. Anyway, I saw rising athwart, crosswise. In other words, they saw these black clouds from horizon to horizon coming towards them. The heavens, a dark cloud, and in the midst of it, Raman thundered. All the earth's spirits leapt up with flaming torches, and the whole land was afire. That's a good description of what happened. The thunder god swept over the heavens, blotting out the sunlight and bringing thick darkness. Now you know what the darkness was. When you have that much ocean water being evaporated just about instantly, or pretty close to it, you get this kind of evaporation. Legend of the Jews, in the Middle East, they saw it also because the earth rotated in that direction and swept right across. The sun was darkened and the foundation of the earth trembled and the lightning flashed and the thunder boomed as never before. That's from Legend of the Jews, not the Torah itself. Greek writer Hesiod, but the thundered hard and mighty. Again, the sound, that's the main thing, is the sound issue. It's the shock wave they heard. It must have been huge. And the earth round resounded terribly, mother shook from the earthquakes, and the white heavens above. So you get an idea, and this is just a sampling. When I get into the book that the legends of all over the world, you'll see that depending on what they were, they describe it pretty good. This thing happened to it's our ancestors. No matter where you are in the world that you're watching this video, our ancestors saw this thing and they recorded as best they could. Number 8, after 6 or 8 hours of no rotation, the Earth will start rotating in the opposite direction. Its path will be across the Indian Ocean to the Pacific Ocean. We do not know the rate of increase of the rotation, but it will most likely be the same as the rate of the slowdown. So, so we get into the, right across this area is going to get the greatest exposure of the heat. And it's going to just keep going as it goes now clockwise. Now the sun is going to rise in the west and set in the east. And that's the issue. The dust shell will arrive between 17 and 19 hours after the reversal. The ocean evaporation looks like it's going to continue for at least 100 days. But your guess is as good as mine, but I think mine's a decent educated guess. Hopefully the survivors of this one will then tell the next generations how long it took. Again, here's the depth of these oceans, and it's going to go right across here and evaporate a lot of ocean water. Speed of the dust shell, I had at first estimated 1,550 miles based on that. 16.66 hours. If it's slower, it would be 19 hours. So it's going to be within this range. When the legend's talking about, with the Indian legend talking about a main and stuff like that, this is a nova, egg nebula, 3,000 light years away. The dust shell is so thick you can't see the star, you just see the heavens above and below. And I don't know if this is radio frequencies or it's usually these are composite drawings, pictures they do. So I don't know what wavelength they're really recording here. One of the engineers sent me this one. This kind of drawing has shown up worldwide, and it may be recording this energy output from the sun when it novaed. This, in essence, would be the center of it, and it blew like that. Here's examples of stars that have novaed in our galaxy. This is the dust shell across here. If it has planets, it would be in this area here, and it blew north and south, blows its brains out. Here's the dust shell, south, north. This is so bright you can't see anything. I can't even see a dust shell in here. It's just too bright. But you can see why the Indians would say to have a mane or a beard. This is what they said. This is what our sun is going to look like, something like this. They all seem to be different, like they're all different personalities. 9, within 10 to 20 minutes after seeing the nova, the sun side of the Earth will be exposed to massive quantities of cosmic and gamma rays. We do not know how long the sun will pour out cosmic rays, and it may be for the full 17, 18 hours. We really don't know, but I know it does continue because the last time we found tools and artifacts with cosmic ray tracks in the fusion tracks inside these objects, which could mean they were exposed to the radiation from the sun when it novaed last. Oh, by the way, this is bone from Mongolia, and I don't remember where this was from. Anyway, 10, the ocean's wave traveling eastward should be most devastating. Within 500 miles of any west coast in most locations, the wave will be over 4,000 feet high and its speed will substantial. Anyway, again, you have to look at the mass of water, the depth here, and how much gravity will wind up flattening out this wave as it goes across a continent. And we're only guessing, but now you understand why we have to engineer the doors and how you build the caves to be able to stand these kind of pressures. Africa, again, you got 4,000 miles of ocean, 33 here, 36 there, a lot of ocean. Africa, I think, is 1,600 or 1,800 miles across here. It'll go right across Africa, but it doesn't mean you shouldn't build the caves. You can survive it. But remember, this is the area you're not going to get such a bad ice age. If you're in north area, it's the ice age that's going to kill you. Water here is going to go right across Europe, probably to the Ural Mountains. Not going to stop it. And again, when this thing cools down, this water here is going to be still cold. And as the sun goes across the equator, south of the equator here, it's going to start heating it up here, but not as much here, which means you'll have those clouds here, and jet streams are going to carry it other parts of the world. And the minute it hits the cold air, well, the jet stream is going from east to west this time, which means the east coast of the United States and Canada are going to get a bad ice age. Now you understand why Darpa, the military, realized, uh-oh, we got a problem. We got caves where we can't get anybody even near that cave entrance because we're going to have thousands of feet of ice and snow there. In other words, they paid attention and watched my videos. In the Far East, Australia, they will get the dust shell coming at them about 1,550 miles per second. And so someplace in this area, they're going to get this dust shell. The only interesting part is, it also may create a shock wave when the dust shell hits the Earth and it compresses atmosphere. Some of the mythologies in this area wind up talking about that the sky got very heavy and they had to crawl across the ground to breathe. Now, firemen tell you if there's a house fire, crawl on the floors because the smoke is going to be above. It may be the compression of the dust shell when it hits the atmosphere forces these clouds and stuff like that and the smoke to go down to almost, ground level. But again, we're extrapolating that. 4,900 miles of ocean opposite Australia, and look at the depth of the water. After it, the good news is this is so shallow, they'll be able to walk to Papua New Guinea. In fact, all around here, the same thing here, you'll be able to walk across it. And Indochina, this is all going to be above ground, above the ocean level. What does the dust shell look like? Well, I've had enough of the videos that show it earlier in Series 4. This was off the coast of, I think, Colombia. And this is from Mars. It's called blueberries they found. This is a close-up. By the way, this isn't really sand. These are the little tiny glass beads that we found on the moon and even on the Earth. And that's what that is. This is the stuff from the sun. Yeah, same stuff, same color, everything. Now you know it's going to head towards you. One source, the sun. 14, after the dust shell passes, it will leave a third of that side of the Earth with extremely low atmospheric pressure. And that's when the dust shell hits. So what's on the other side? I estimate between Greenwich Mean to about 30 degrees. But I could be off by 15 degrees or 10, so it may be in this area. So like what happened to Siberia, where you had fast frozen animals and mammoths and of all types, they're going to get the instant ice age, besides all that evaporated water from over here, and some of it heads up there. Boy, I got news for you. They get the instant snow and instant ice age. I don't think there's any way around it. The other part was this. And the legends in South America talk about it and other places about the extremely fast winds. And when the backside is extremely low pressure, and this is normal, and this expands outward, that's Boyle's law, it's going to drop temperature. But the winds around the world, and they also have four corners of the Earth, it goes in all different directions around the globe to fill up the extremely low atmospheric pressure on the backside. So you're going to have extremely great winds going around. So if those people who think they're going to make it by a boat, you'll see in a second what I mean. So in Europe, they're going to still have the ocean water on top of them from the Atlantic. It just might freeze like this. So this is in Antarctica. This is how high this water is. It's a real wave of water, and it's frozen solid. When it starts snowing, this is called whiteout conditions. There's a truck actually in there, and you'll be able to see the nose in front of your face. When it's all over with, there's Europe, or there's Appalachia. I think Washington, D.C. may be down there someplace. That's the problem. So if you think you're going to build something in Colorado or Appalachia or New Hampshire or New York or any place, what happens is you get snowed in. You could be under many hundreds to thousands of feet of ice and snow. You're not getting out. You will starve to death or freeze to death. That's why you can't be in the northern or southern extremities, because that's what happens to you. Now, the high winds. These are waves, they call them rogue waves, but these are waves that form by maybe 60, 70, 80 mile an hour winds. And this is another one. This is a military ship here. There's a wall of water coming towards them. And here's another one. This is really a composite drawing. It was done by the BBC. It happened to a German ship, a cargo ship. It was hit by a wave that was about 98 feet high. So do you think any kind of a ship, now this is what maybe 50, 60, 80 mile an hour winds, do you think any ship is going to be able to take, or what the waves are going to look like when it's like 200, 300 miles an hour, the wind? Besides, the ocean's going to be sloshing backwards and forwards. I mean, what do you think it's going to be like? No surface ship is going to make it. Surface ships are not designed to be capsized. They don't right themselves, except maybe a sailboat. So no one's going to go in a sailboat in this stuff. So don't think about being on a ship or a boat during this thing, when this thing happens. You're not going to survive it. So anyway, what will happen after the geometric reversal? I'm almost done. It's going to take about 7 days for these oceans to finally settle down. Remember, this part of the Atlantic is probably going to be shifted over this way. The Pacific is going to come over this way and start filling up the basin here. But this is then going to slosh back. So it's going to be this sloshing backwards and forward of the oceans. And it's not going to be a pretty picture. And I figure it's going to be about 7 days until this thing settles down. For some reason, many of the legends talk about the number 7 or 7 days also, but they don't say what it's associated with. That's what's interesting about it. So you have to worry about the backsplash, but the backsplash shouldn't be as bad on the coast here than when the ocean went this way. For China, same thing. Backsplash of this, they won't get the Atlantic Ocean at all. Backsplash here is going to go a couple of 100 miles in, but they're going to have a terrible ice age. There's no way around it. They're going to have a hell of an ice age. They got 7,000 to 9,000 miles of ocean water here, and a lot of it down here is going to be all heated up, and that water vapor, all that dark clouds you saw, jet streams are going to take it up here and move it around, and it's going to snow and snow and snow, including Japan, Korea, everything from here up will be the earliest when it comes to snowing. Russia, forget it. 2, all unevaporated ocean waters will now be in the form of very thick, dark, hot clouds in the atmosphere. At first it's going to hot rain, and one of the legends say that hot rain, scalding rain landed on the sinners, in quotes. Over the next 8 weeks or so, it'll cool down, and it'll then be normal rain, then start snowing. You know, like I showed in the table, is probably the best determination of when it's going to start snowing by the equator. But your best chance is the latent heat of the ocean will prevent the snow from getting too deep and not workable near the equator. Again, we don't know how long it's going to take for all that moisture in the atmosphere to basically land in the form of snow, and so you'll see a sky and you'll see the sun again. I wish I knew, and the legends don't tell you anything. It's just guessing. We're going to need help from NOAA to figure some of this stuff out, and I'll write them a letter and see if I can get them to help out if they dare. Earthquakes and volcanoes will continue for decades. I don't see how it could stop, because the mantle is still going to be heated up tremendously, and it's going to take a couple of decades until it calms down. After 50 days, assume it's safe from the flood, solar outbursts, and high temperatures. Some of the men in the shelter should be able to get out. You want to get out into the cave, and the entrance of the cave, clear it out of debris, logs, stuff like that may have plugged it up, or your obstacles. And but you're going to bring Geiger counters, and if you still read cosmic ray radiation, go back in until it does calm down, unless you really have to go out. Repair any damage in your cave shelters and stuff like that in the interim, and try to set up radio communications, shortwave radio. And in fact, I was talking to an electrical engineer earlier today, and Morse code is a great way of doing it. It'll travel far, and as long as you know Morse code, and that's all going to be in English. That way, I want people to communicate with each other so they know other people survived this thing. Okay, finding engineers to design the cave door. Still need structural, civil, mechanical, mining, steel and concrete, metallurgists, chemical engineers also, what I now know. This is one of their cave shelters. This is called a flying wing. What I'm told by the engineers, they make great funnels. They funnel stuff into your cave, not out. Their door is recessed. So it looks like 20 to 30 feet recessed. And you want to do that anyway. And this frame around it, when you're dealing with a mountain, I'll show you. These are road and some railroad ones. You do this so any rock from the mountain above comes down, it doesn't block your cave entrance. Same thing goes here. Here's two other examples. This is in the Cascades, actually. Now, the reason I showed you this, I've had some people, even some engineers, talk about putting the cave entrance on the north or south side of a hill or mountain. The problem with that is this. If you have an ocean, we know it's going to be coming from the west and going east. An ocean, even 500 feet deep or 1,000, 2,000 feet deep, going at about 300 to 400 miles an hour, will rip this thing off like it was never there. And if it's anchored into your cave system, it'll tear some of your cave entrance off also. It's like it was never there. The force and volume and pressure of that water is so great, you can't stand it. There's no way you can do it. You do these only on the east side. I don't worry about the backsplash. I don't think it's going to have the velocity or the pressure to have to worry about it. The door should be able to handle it. But you need this anyway, any debris and stuff like that coming off the mountain, rolling down, landslides, stuff like that. This will be able to take some of it, a concrete covering. This is the last of it. Some people say we all evolved from Africa. I don't think so. I think someone in the far in the past told these people what was going to happen, just like I'm telling you. And some of them went to Africa near the equator to survive this thing. And as the snow and ice melted, they migrated back to where they originally came from, too many races, too much genetic differences to say we all came from one place. I don't believe it. That's it. Well, you now know there's no such thing as a micronova or a mini-nova. You also know how much heat is involved, and you now know this is something serious. We do have 25 and a half years, thanks to me, and if you do nothing, there's no way you're going to survive this thing. This is that bad. Now, like I explained, when that sun novas, you're going to enjoy it. If you're on the backside of the Earth, you're still going to see that sun when it's in a state of nova, because the Earth is going to rotate and it's going to keep doing it for maybe 50 or 100 days. That thing's still giving off energy. So I hope you learned something, and tell your friends.